The empress who drank poison every day until it worked. This haunting historical horror story follows the eerie legacy of an empress who made death her daily companion by choice. The beginning of the poison ritual. She was once known as Empress Adassa of Valenstra, a cruel and brilliant ruler who feared only one thing: betrayal. Born into a court of whispers and veiled daggers, Adassa watched her own mother waste away from poisoned tea when she was only 6. At 12, her older brother died after eating a sugared plum. Every death was labeled a mystery, but the cause was clear. Poison ran in their palace like water. When she rose to power at 19, Empress Adassa declared war, not on kingdoms but on toxins. She didn't just employ food testers. She didn't banish alchemists or herbalists. Instead, she did something unimaginable. She began drinking poison, the daily doses. It started with microdoses, just a drop of belladonna on her tongue, a hint of arsenic in her wine, a trace of wolfsbane in her perfume. Her court physicians begged her to stop, warning her of madness, disfigurement, and death. But she kept a meticulous journal of each dose, each symptom, and how long the sickness lasted. Over time, her body adjusted. The stomach cramps subsided. Her hair, once falling out in clumps, grew back thicker. Her skin, pale and translucent, gained a strange, glowing tone, like moonlight on marble. They whispered that her blood had turned black, that she no longer slept, that her body no longer aged. And strangest of all, none of the poisoners who came after her ever succeeded. They'd lace her goblet, slip powder into her bath, coat the rim of her mirror in toxins. She would only smile. The unnatural transformation. As the years passed, Adassa's enemies died off one by one, either by execution or mysterious illness. But she didn't age. At 40, she looked 25. At 60, still youthful. Her son grew old before her eyes. Her grandchildren called her the Glass Empress because she looked too perfect, too smooth, too cold. And then came the night of the glass banquet. To celebrate her 100th year on the throne, Empress Adassa hosted a feast in the Great Hall, surrounded by crystal chandeliers, mirrors, and transparent glassware. Every course was laced with poison, lethal doses, but not for her. She ate every bite, drank every cup, and watched as the entire court died around her, the secret within her body. When they finally stormed her palace decades later, rebels, invaders, and her own descendants, they found her throne room empty, except for a diary and a silver goblet. No body, no bones. But legends say that her blood had become a perfect antidote, that a drop could heal anything, or kill even faster than the purest venom. Some believe her remains were ground into powder and hidden in the royal crypts, still active. Some say she still walks, wearing gloves and a veil, her kiss lethal, her tears acidic. The horror of immunity. The story of Empress Adassa isn't just about survival. It's about transformation. A woman who turned poison into power until her very biology changed. She didn't build immunity. She became the poison. And in the end, the poison didn't kill her. It made her eternal. The first sip, a damp palace chamber, morning fog clings to windows. In the year 1572, deep within the kingdom of Valenstra, a young empress stood in front of a polished obsidian mirror. Her name was Adassa, only 19, her crown newly forged, and her enemies already multiplying. Her food tasters were dropping like flies. One choked on a figure. Another died foaming at the mouth after testing her wine. Her maids whispered behind her back, careful not to breathe too loud, lest their tongues be clipped. Her physician suggested retreat, exile, maybe even abdication. But she had a better idea. She ordered the court alchemist to prepare one single drop of nightshade extract. That morning, with trembling hands, she placed it on her tongue and waited the body's betrayal. The pain hit almost immediately. Her throat burned, her eyes blurred, her stomach clenched so hard she collapsed on the mosaic floor, vomiting bile that shimmered with green and purple streaks. But she didn't call for help. She waved away the guards, and she recorded every symptom. Day after day, she increased the dose. First belladonna, then arsenic, then a touch of hemlock. She studied her body like a scholar dissecting scripture, obsessed, methodical, possessed. And slowly, something changed. The change. At first, it was subtle. She no longer got chills. Her eyes stopped watering. Her breath smelled of iron and roses. Her skin took on a waxy smoothness, too perfect to be real. Her pupils dilated unnaturally in the dark. The servant stopped looking her in the eyes. Then came the night her youngest sister tried to kill her. She had brewed a death tea from monkshood and gifted it to the Empress under the guise of reconciliation. Adassa drank it all and smiled. Her sister died in her sleep that very night, blood frozen in her veins. Adassa didn't say a word. But the next morning, she requested an extra vial of poison be added to her breakfast. The Crimson Book. Soon, the Royal Library had to make space for her growing journal, the Crimson Book of Doses. Inside, hundreds of handwritten pages detailed her reactions, theories, and strange discoveries. My dreams now smell of almond and smoke. I no longer bruise. The mirror sees me, but does not reflect. I suspect the silver is burning away my image. I spoke with the dead man last night. He whispered he liked the taste of me. What began as immunity became alchemy, and then something else entirely. The glass banquet teaser. By the time she turned 100, she still looked 30. Her voice never aged. Her smile was still as cruel as the day she executed her first chancellor. Rumors of her condition spread far beyond Belenstra. Some said she had discovered the elixir of life. Others claimed she'd made a pact with something that lived beneath the palace, a god of toxins that fed on betrayal and blood. And then came the night of the glass banquet, where every guest was poisoned. All of them died, except for her, the deathless woman. The royal infirmary. 20 years after the glass banquet, the Empress had become a myth while still alive. Belenstra was ruled not by government, but by a rumor. She cannot die, and she never sleeps. Children were taught not to whisper the word Adassa after dark. Priests left offerings of salt and milk at the palace gates. And yet, scholars, scientists, and enemies came from across the continent to witness the truth for themselves. One of them was Dr. Henrik Solmore, a physician exiled from the northern provinces for his illegal autopsies. He was obsessed with her legend. He believed immortality lived not in magic, but in biology, in flesh. And so, he requested an audience with the Empress. Amazingly, she granted it. A meeting with a god. Inside her chamber, everything was wrong. There were no candles, no torches. Only a dim blue glow emanating from the Empress's body itself. She sat motionless, eyes open but unblinking, skin porcelain smooth, almost reflective. She looked no older than 30, though it was said she had ruled for over a century and a half. Dr. Solmore bowed, trembling. I only asked to see what you are made of. She said nothing. She only extended her arm and smiled. What her blood revealed. Back in his underground lab, Solmore extracted a single vial of her blood. At first, it looked ordinary until it began to move. The black-red liquid swirled on its own, spinning inside the glass. It resisted heat, froze at room temperature. When exposed to silver, it hissed. Under the microscope, he saw cells unlike any human structure, hexagonal and crystalline, with pulsing dark centers. And then one of them looked back at him. The next day, he tried to replicate her blood, mixed poisons, animal cells, even sacrificed one of his assistants. None of it worked, until he injected himself with the last drop of her blood, the surgeon's curse. At first, he felt invincible. No pain, no fatigue. His skin healed instantly. His hair turned jet black. But then came the voices. They whispered in ancient tongues. Insects began following him. Ants crawled from his ears. His eyes became milk white. His shadow no longer matched his movements. By the end of the week, he had carved symbols into his own chest, mumbling recipes made of ash, teeth, and salt. Then he disappeared, leaving behind only one message scrawled in blood across the walls of his chamber. She is not immortal. She is inhabited. The Palace Rebellion. 14 years after the surgeon's disappearance. The kingdom was breaking. Crops failed. Water turned bitter. Mothers gave birth to eyeless children. People blamed Adassa's continued reign. And so the rebellion began, led by her own great-granddaughter. Princess Thera. The people stormed the palace with fire and pitchforks. They expected resistance. Guard towers. Armies. Traps. But they found nothing. The gates were open. The hallways were silent. The throne room was empty, save for a withered crown, a silver goblet, and a blood-stained book titled Crimson Doses, Volume XXI. There was no sign of Empress Adassa, but the walls were still warm, and something had been scratching from inside the mirrors. The final entry. Inside the Crimson Doses journal was a final page. No ink, only a reddish-black fingerprint, pressed over and over into the paper until it formed the shape of a single sentence. It was never about immunity. It was about evolution. That page was later removed and hidden in a monastery beneath the frozen Alps. Every monk assigned to guard it either went blind or vanished. The last to read it gouged out his tongue before dying. The silver goblet returns. 112 years after the fall of the Wallenstein Palace. In a dusty antique market on the outskirts of Dresden, a merchant displayed a strange object behind glass. A silver goblet, tarnished black at the edges, with faint scratch marks around its rim, as if something had clawed at it from the inside. No one knew where it came from, but no one touched it for long. Buyers complained of nausea. One woman claimed her child stopped speaking after simply looking at it. A priest tried to bless it. He died of heart failure later that night. And then one day, a man with no name and no tongue arrived. He pointed to the goblet and held out a pouch of gold. When the merchant hesitated, the man carved a single word into the wooden counter. Adassa. The first sip again. A candlelit cellar. The man lit 7 black candles, drew a chalk circle, whispered something, though he had no tongue. Then he poured red wine into the silver goblet. The wine turned black. It shimmered, as if something were swimming in it. Tiny blinking lights, like eyes, floated just beneath the surface. He drank and began to scream. His skin blistered. His mouth foamed. His spine arched backward until his bones cracked. But he did not die. Instead, he laughed. He stood tall, wiped the blood from his lips, and said a name no one should know. I have returned. The new host, that man whose identity was never discovered, soon began traveling through Europe, collecting poisons. In Venice, he stole powdered toadstool from an apothecary. In Prague, he consumed mercury beads for fun. In Paris, he drank ink mixed with crushed beetle shells. Nothing harmed him. His eyes turned pale and glassy. He no longer blinked. Witnesses reported seeing a second face beneath the skin, visible only when lightning flashed, like a woman's face, screaming from just below the surface. People called him the Glass Pilgrim, and wherever he went, others followed. They drank from the goblet. They changed. They called themselves the Blood-Fed. The Blood-Fed cult. The Blood-Fed believed Adassa had ascended, not as a god, but as a contagion, an evolving intelligence. They believed that her blood could rewrite a person, not kill them, not heal them, but replace them. They sought to become new vessels. And the ritual was always the same. Drink from the goblet. Burn your own reflection. Sleep in the dirt for 3 nights. Wake up someone else. Some did not wake up. Others awoke screaming words in languages no one had heard in 1,000 years. But those who succeeded, their blood did strange things. It dissolved metal. It whispered in jars. It refused to clot. One girl, only 13, was seen bleeding from her eyes, but her skin remained cold and perfect like wax. Her parents claimed her shadow sometimes moved before she did. The curse spreads. The goblet traveled. It was stolen, buried, locked away, recovered. Each time, it left behind a trail of anomalies. A convent where all 20 nuns chewed their tongues to ribbons overnight. A town in Norway where mirrors stopped reflecting faces. A morgue in Istanbul where corpses kept turning to face the walls. And still, somewhere in the dark, the blood fed continued. The return of the Crimson Book. A collector in Belgium, known only as Dr. Maliere, acquired a locked chest said to be recovered from beneath the ruins of the Wallenstein Palace. Inside, a red iron-bound book. On the first page, Crimson Doses, Volume XEI, rewritten by she who is now within. Inside were entries written in 2 different hands, one human, one not. The second script seemed to squirm when stared at too long. I found another girl. Her blood sings when the goblet is near. She cries mercury now. The voice in her belly says it's almost time. I am not just in the blood. I am in the bones, in the shadow beneath your jaw. I am under your fingernails. The final symptom. Those who survived the goblet began to lose a specific part of their body. Their reflection. First, it dimmed, then blurred. Eventually, it disappeared. They could no longer be seen in mirrors, but they could see themselves just behind the glass, watching, smiling, then scratching, just like Adassa had, a child without a pulse. A remote village at the edge of the Carpathian Mountains, modern day. She was born in silence. No crying, no heartbeat, no breath, yet the midwife screamed, not because the child was dead, but because when she touched the infant's skin, her hand blistered and began to rot. The doctors said it was a skin condition. Theologists said it was a punishment. But the mother knew the truth. She had felt the girl move inside her months before she should have. Felt heat radiate from her womb. Felt something whisper from behind her belly button in a voice that wasn't hers. The villagers called her Ilya, but behind closed doors they used another name, Adassa reborn. Signs of contagion. By age 5, Ilya had never bled. Even when cut, her skin sealed itself with a hiss, like acid burning through fabric. She never got sick. Instead, others did. Her teachers grew pale. Her classmates forgot how to speak. The family dog walked into a frozen lake and didn't come out. The village well began bubbling at night. Metal objects rusted when she walked past. Every mirror in her home cracked when she looked into it. And when she finally did speak at age 7, she whispered something that terrified her mother. I dream in red, and she's behind my eyes. The blood test. Out of desperation, the mother took Ilya to a doctor in a neighboring city. They drew her blood. It ate through the syringe. When placed under a microscope, the blood squirmed, coiled, reacted to light. One technician claimed it spelled letters in the condensation on the slide glass. Where's my body? That technician later removed his own eyes with a spoon. They tried to burn the blood sample. The flame went out, and the smoke spelled something in the air. She is returning. The boiling field. On a spring morning, Ilya wandered into a wheat field. When she reached the center, she lay down. Every stalk of wheat withered in seconds. Birds fell from the sky. The soil turned black and began to steam. A 200-meter circle of ground reached boiling temperatures. She emerged without a scratch. That night, 20 villagers bled from their ears and went blind. She looked at her mother and said, blankly, I didn't mean to. She just wanted to breathe. The crimson voice. Ilya began hearing things. Not voices, just one voice. Clear, calm, female. It spoke in archaic Wallenstein. Ilya had never heard the language, but understood every word. It told her where the goblet was buried. It told her what the blood-fed left behind. It told her that her body was the final vessel, the womb for a second becoming. Her mother tried to kill her with rat poison. Ilya drank it, smiled. That was her favorite. The final circle. At age 12, Ilya vanished. She was found a week later at the ruins of the old Wallenstein Palace, now a scorched wasteland swallowed by time. She had carved a circle of symbols into the earth, half a kilometer wide. The ground pulsed, vibrated. Whispers echoed from the stones. In the center, Ilya sat, glowing. Her blood formed an image on the soil, a woman's face with black, lidless eyes. Ilya opened her mouth, and the voice that came out was not her own. I am awake again. The new poison. What came next is blurred in reports and folklore. Some say the earth cracked open. Others say the air turned to glass. Some claim the soil still sings when it rains. But one fact remains. Everyone who stepped into that field afterward either died or changed. Their skin melted. Their eyes blackened. They spoke in riddles. They wrote in blood. And when they died, their blood boiled the earth. The last page of the Crimson Book. One final page was added to Crimson Doses, Volume XXII, discovered deep inside a cave in Austria, written in a substance later confirmed to be biologically active blood. It reads, I do not need a throne. I do not need a name. I only need a bloodstream to wade in. I only need a single sip to return. Poison did not kill me. It birthed me, and through this girl I will multiply.